Hello everybody, Jared Voley here for CreativeStandup.com. In this video, I want to respond to an email I got from Donna, and her question was, actually not really a question, it was an observation, but she wants some help on figuring out what that observation means. And I think it's super interesting, and it's also something that I bet a lot of you guys have found as well. And I want to just highlight this because it's such a great observation. I want to highlight it for you, and I want to kind of shine a spotlight on it and just ask you guys a couple questions and see if you can explore and find the truth for yourself. Anyway, so she has a punchline in this email, and I'm not going to be reading you the punchline. So instead, I don't want to give away her punchline. So instead, what I'm going to do is I just edited out her punchline, and I wrote another one, but I did it in a way that is pretty much the same nature of the joke, but that way I don't actually have to give away her punchline, but we can still talk about something specific. So here's her email. She said, "I recently did a 7-minute set for getting my next joke. I looked at my cheat sheet and offhandedly said to the audience, 'Why did I write this so tiny?' For some reason, this got a big laugh. I was just stating fact and being myself. I got any idea what the hell that was? Appreciate your expert opinion." So, anyway, so why did I write this so tiny was the part that I put in there. But what she's really saying here is that something happened, and she called the moment. So if you've ever heard that term, calling the moment, it just means you're kind of break away from any kind of material and you're just super real about what just happened. You call out the moment, you call out the now, basically. So any kind of joke there, you could substitute her joke, my punchline, and get the same basic idea. All of it is coming from calling the moment. So let's talk about what actually happened. I'm going to give you two different perspectives on this. There's the conventional view of like kind of what I learned when I was first starting out, and then I want to tell you what I believe now. So the conventional view is that you found a punchline that you did not know about. So this happened because you forgot what you were about to say. So you kind of reached for something, and then you just offhandedly said your punchline. And what conventional wisdom does or says is that you need to use that as a new setup and punchline. So that's kind of what I learned early on. I don't believe that anymore, and I'll tell you, like, one thing I have trouble recreating those kinds of things on stage. Like, I used to have a couple of jokes where I had to purposefully say the wrong thing, and then I would kind of backtrack and say, oh, that was an accident, and then I tried to do other stuff and go on a long tangent or something. And that worked, like, it worked fantastic the first time because it was an honest mistake. But when I tried to recreate it, it didn't feel right. So something was off about it, and it just stopped being as funny. So my current feeling on the topic is that okay, so I'm going to assume that, like most comedians that are just starting out, you have a list of strict jokes, right? Like these are the jokes that I'm going to tell, okay? And you were on, well, I know that because you forgot the list. You have to have a list to forget it. So you were telling these jokes, and my belief, and this is what was true for me and what really created the growth in my career, was when I realized that that list of jokes wasn't actually helping me. So like I took my natural sense of humor, that was like improv comedy. I was obsessed with improv comedy for years and years before I got into improv, right? Or before I got into stand-up comedy. And then so I got into stand-up, and I was taught that you need to have very strict structure to your jokes. And I learned all of these joke formulas and stuff, which I despise. I think joke formulas are the worst possible way that you can go about writing comedy. You would be better off just turning on a voice recorder and just talking for an hour and then just saying, okay, what funny thing did I like, or what interesting thing did I say? And then just taking that on stage, right? You would be better on stage if you had no knowledge relative to if you were, obsessed with these joke formulas. Anyway, so you probably have some set of rules, and I don't know if joke formulas are, that's kind of the extreme example, but you have some set of rules that you're working from, right? And those rules are basically a mask that you have when you're on stage, right? So you're saying, don't look at me, look at the mask. Don't look at the imperfections that I have. Look at here's the thing that I think you will laugh at. Right? And so instead of being yourself, instead of being the funny you that was funny enough to get on stage in the first place or to want to do comedy, we end up going, okay, I'm so funny that I want to do stand-up comedy. And then you read a couple of books on stand-up comedy, and they all tell you that you need to put on this mask and you need to say, here's what a joke is. And then you do their formula, which has nothing to do with your natural sense of humor. So what ends up happening is that all these new comedians, they're jumping on stage with these formulaic, highly structured jokes as like a way of masking their vulnerabilities, basically, right? They don't want to be vulnerable on stage. So if I had to take a guess at what happened here, I would say that for a split second, your mask fell off. You said something, you had no crutch at that moment. But in that moment, you said something, and your joke, by the way, is hysterical. It is so funny. I think if you ask anybody, is this joke funny? Ask other comedians, they'll say yes. Like, they will agree that it's funny. But your problem with your own joke is that you don't have a label that you can put on it. And that's because it came from the real you. The real you does not need to put a label on a joke. Right? The obsession with labels of saying this is a 3-count joke, right? So this is a 3-count joke. I understand how it works. Therefore, I feel like I can't fail on stage, right? This is a broken or misplaced sincerity. This is a broken assumption joke. We have all these labels that we want to put on a joke. Those labels are the only time they matter. Actually, they don't matter, but the only time we think they matter is as a comedian when we're actually writing our material. When you're on stage, you maybe you trust it more because you have that label, but the audience does not care. Right? You never, in your real life, you have never ever cared about having a label for your jokes. Right? Before you got into comedy, you never required any kind of label to be funny. You would allow yourself to say weird things, just be quirky, whatever. You would find ways of creating humor, but you didn't require a label or a structure or anything that really constrains your natural sense of humor. The only time that starts to happen is when comedians get on stage and they're either worried about failure or they are obsessed with success. Both of those things can get you to the exact same kind of the exact same area. So if I'm afraid of failing on stage, I say, what should I do about it? The answer is to structure my jokes in a way that somebody else promises me I can't fail. Right? They say if you write your material like this, you will have less of an opportunity to fail. Right? There's less of a threat. Right? So if I'm afraid, then that's a good idea. If I'm obsessed with success, then I ask myself, what should I do to be the best? The answer is I need to structure my material in a way that's perfect, that this guy is telling me that will give me the best opportunity for success. Right? So either those polar opposites, I'm afraid or I'm competitive. Both of those, the answer to both of those questions is that you need to structure your jokes. You need to have some kind of nice label to make sure that your joke works effectively. Right? But those are just rules that work in general. They don't work specifically for anybody. You have to accept all of the rules in order for any of the rules to matter. So if I'm playing Monopoly, okay, so there's tons of rules to Monopoly. Those rules only make sense when they're relative to each other, right? Boardwalk costs $500. I don't remember. So boardwalk costs $500, and then when you get it, something else happens. That's a rule, right? That rule makes 0 sense until you also pick up every other rule, right? So if you want to be yourself on stage, if you want to take off the mask, if you want to not have that label, you can't pick and choose which rules you will live by. Or you can't pick and choose their rules, right? My idea, what I talked about this in the Creativity for Comedians. I did a workshop on this. What I told everybody there was, you need to be playing your own game, right? There's a community game, which is basically like Monopoly. And what all these comedy teachers and books and stuff, what all of it teaches is that everybody plays Monopoly, but there's one thing is so step 4 is where you add your persona or your POV or your attitude, or there's a lot of different, comedy teachers do it in different ways, but it's weird that it's towards the very end, that's where they ask you to try to insert your what makes you different, what makes you unique, right? But you have already built the entire joke by then, right? And I don't even know which you're probably thinking about some stand-up comedy teacher right now, but I don't know which one that is, but it's probably still right? Because that's the general consensus in the industry right now, which is like saying everybody plays Monopoly, but my version is going to be the Star Wars Monopoly, and you're playing the Garfield Monopoly or whatever. I don't know why Garfield came up. I struggled for a second one. I only know Star Wars. What else? What is another Monopoly one? Anyway, so that's basically what uniqueness means to a lot of comedy teachers, is that you layer who you are on top of what you've already built, which is like saying, okay, the only thing, I'm gonna bake a cake, and that cake is gonna be exactly the same as everybody else's cake. But don't worry, I'm unique, I'm different, I'm special because I'm gonna put some different icing on it or whatever, right? That's not your purpose, right? You need to make the inside of the cake is the important part. Well, it's not. It's a bad analogy. The icing is the only part that matters. So let's drop that analogy. Anyway, the inside is what is important for you. Right? You don't want to layer, you don't want to put a mask on, my mask is slightly better than your mask. No, even if I'm not as funny as you, if I take off the mask, who is the audience going to remember? So there's 20 comedians on the night. 19 of them have a mask, and the mask is decorated and painted and perfect and wonderful, and the jokes are tight. And then I get on stage and I'm okay, but I'm fucking real. They will remember me. And here's what I know. No matter if you're practicing using the jokes and you're practicing with the mask, you can get better. If you're practicing without the mask, you can get better, right? But I would rather get better at being the real me on stage than get better at being the mask. So going back to the first analogy, you have this, all right, so everyone's playing this common game, the basically Monopoly game, right? I can't say I'm gonna live by only half of your rules, because then I'm gonna get sucked into the whole thing, right? I need to open up a space where I am playing my game, right? And my job as a creative person is to set up my game in a way that you are going to be dying to play my game, right? So everybody is around playing Monopoly and they're like, Monopoly's okay. I mean, I've been playing it for 10 years. But it's an okay game. I enjoy it when I'm playing it. And then you look over and you see somebody playing something that's wildly different, right? Something that you're not used to. You will notice that, and it will pique your curiosity, right? So why not be that person? Why not take the mask off and build your own set of rules that the audience is going to be dying to play? So going back to the email, you said that you forgot what the joke was, the next joke was. So instead of saying that, okay, what happened was that you found a new joke, instead of saying that, let's call this the lesson. You found an exception to the rule, or the exception to your current rule, that said, your current rule said that you have to be delivering the material in a certain way. You found an exception to that the audience loved, right? And the audience picked it up right away, okay? It is obvious from reading this that everybody in the audience noticed that you were being super authentic and real. So what would happen if that becomes the new rule? Right? So what happens if you build your game around that one central idea? Could you develop that one small idea about being super real? Could you take that and could you develop it into something that is amazing? Amazing and different, right? Because you can get better at applying this new rule, but you can't be playing Monopoly as well, right? You have to say, look, Monopoly works for those people, right? If you want to accept all the rules of Monopoly, you can play Monopoly, right? You can't just accept the rules that you want. You have to play it, or you have to go and create something yourself. So my challenge to you would be to use this experience of having the mask. You have the mask and the mask fell off for a moment. You said something hilarious and the audience said, yes, I love that about you. Make that into 7 minutes, right? And it will not be perfect the first time, right? But your first show wasn't perfect the first time either, right? The you with the mask wasn't perfect, right? So don't expect you without the mask to be perfect. But you without the mask is going to be freaking awesome, because that's going to be way different from anything else that the audience is used to getting, especially on an open mic level. On the open mic level, the rule is to be wearing a mask that is very finely decorated, right? After that is where you start finding more of this self-expression. So that's my challenge to Donna. Thank you so much, Donna, for your email, and I invite everyone else to shoot me your questions. I've been enjoying these Q&As, so we're going to be putting out a lot more. So thanks for joining me. That was me and us together. It's this muss. Thanks. You can tell when I'm in my head, right? Did you see the mask come on? That was the mask, because I just went into my head and I said, I need to wrap up. And then I need to say some words that you will like for me wrapping up, right? That wasn't the real me right there. Everything before that was the real me. And possibly like the first 15 seconds, sometimes the first 15 seconds of being on stage or making a video is that same where I'm trying to let go of my need to say the right thing. And then that way I can actually be myself. But that is a great example of how quickly that mask can come back on. Anyway, so I am Jared Voley for CreativeStandup.com. Thank you for joining me. Send me your questions. This is so fun.